So how I changed, you ask me, and I say, just take a look at this. 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 So how I changed, you ask me, and I say, just take a look at this.
So the story, ultimately how I changed, is I started to go more into nature, and I began to free myself of my parents controlling nature. And that is a major challenge in itself. So I simply started to, well, it was for me my studies in environmental protection that freed me. But still with my parents' support. So they were able to support me financially, which is why I can speak to you today. Which is why, it's a ridiculous waste of energy to be jealous of anything or anyone. Because you can only draw from what you're being given. And I had to take responsibility from a young age. Push this through by myself. Because nobody's watching over you when you study. You just have to do it yourself. So, studying is a challenge in itself. And many fail. I succeeded. I had good friends. Right? One died. So life happens. You feel what you feel, and others see you as, oh wow, he comes from a good home. But it's untrue. I have been punished as a child. I have been neglected as a child. Although I was being given food, my parents were lacking spirit. And so I looked for spirit at its very root. And I found something, but for that I had to dive deep into the middle, into the center of myself. And there I found darkness. And from the darkness, I saw sprouting light. I was walking through myself, shining light on everything that scared me, on everything that I hated, on everything that I felt was holding me back. And I transcended it. I transformed it. And that's the road of a shaman. And that takes a lot of time and devotion. And the will to proceed, to keep walking straight into the darkness. This is far from a simple thing, but if you're being drawn into darkness, then sometimes it's easier to give in, to let it happen. And that's why the ceremony is so important for this. The rite of passage is a ritual. For a ceremony is something that is giving you boundaries to the experience. If you're in a ceremony, there's not going to be any sex. There's not going to be any violence. You have to behave yourself. You have to show respect to the shaman who keeps the space together from falling apart. And then you can recreate yourself in a ceremonially fixed space. But there is no guarantee that if you now go online and say healing ceremonies, because there's also phony people. So you have to let your intuition choose for you and then just see. And maybe you've already had what was supposed to be a transformative experience. Maybe you joined into some kind of group of people and they turned out to be some kind of a cult. Well, that's literally what happened to me. I drank with them ayahuasca, and then I realized, whoa, they're all stuck. They're all addicts. They cannot let go of this. They're stuck on drinking stuff, to get shit-faced on ayahuasca. There was no depth to it. They were just paddling around on the surface because none of them was truly a shaman. You know, I keep saying this, 1% of the entire population is probably like true shaman. And true shaman equals, you know, like a true yogi. Somebody who can do things regardless of whatever is happening during the times that you are being born into. So you can transcend the teachings you have been given by others, and you listen to nature, and you go to the source. You follow nobody. You follow no books, no lectures, nothing. You just follow your own path. You know, your parents can do what they did, and they will continue doing it because that's the way they like doing things. But I had to find my own path. And I couldn't have expressed it in any other way than just by living it, filming it, documenting it, sharing what I found. You know, hours of podcasting. You know, how many words? Who's to say? Okay, now turning this way. You see? It took a lot of, you know, this, you know, slacklining is something I picked up along the way, and it stuck because I loved it. I loved it. It, you know, it sparked something in me, and I arose from the ashes of having been misguided by the people who were supposed to, right, teach me something valuable. So in a lot of circumstances, yeah, you have to actually learn from the negative example. So the story of my upbringing taught me how to be different, but that's the same for my parents. The story of their upbringing also taught them how to be different in a way, because you have to go with the times. What they did worked in their circumstances. You know? But everything you figure out for yourself only works for a certain amount of time. And I knew how change works, but I was lacking stability. So when I started slacklining in 2012, I was spending time in Norway. I was doing an Erasmus, like a half year abroad, 5 months. And then somebody said, hey, let's slackline, because you could borrow slacklines from the university, which is the Sogn og Fjordane University College in Sogndal, which is in Norway, like I said, and it's at the Sogndalsfjord. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Vatn. They have a beautiful language, but hard to get into unless you're really devoted to live there. So I was clearly drawn into English, but not just like that, because English is the world language. Whatever the French might say, they're just sore losers, you know, but maybe, you know, it's gonna be a different language at some stage. Language always changes. So until I was able to slackline like this, I mean, I'm talking to people in the park like this. I'm slacklining and I'm giving them a speech while slacklining. Occasionally turning around like this. And then I talk to them about diet, because they cannot deny, you know, that I've got something when I'm right in their face doing this. Because everything happening online, you know, may be said to, you know, it's now, you know, everybody's gonna say, yeah, he just did it with AI. Yeah, well, it's probably possible to fake this, but who cares? I know I'm doing it, and if it inspires you, who cares if I really did it? Because if it sparks something inside of you, then do it. then it shouldn't matter if it was AI or not. What matters is that you're motivated. And I mean, this is such a far stretch than how I started. You get up on the slack line, you keep falling. So how I changed is probably I was never a sore loser. I mean, there were times where I was a sore loser, but I simply wanted to continue. I wanted to find the things that I actually wanted. And if you have this, and you keep moving, and you let everything fall away that actually doesn't really interest you. You know, sometimes I let music fall away, like Rammstein, System of a Down, but I picked up Disturbed again. You know, I picked up, Chris Webby. I keep listening to him because he's a product of those times, right? I can learn from him. But I can also see that psychedelics aren't the only way to get where you would like to be. And what this taught me is to simply remain on top. No matter what happens, life's a shit show. No matter what. You're crawling out of a bloody vagina. And then you cannot do shit. You're like Neo, only with the body of a little infant. And everybody can do with you what they want. Your parents can prick your wiener, right? They can fondle around with your little vagina. You don't know what your parents did when you were a child, using your body. I'm just saying. I remember things, and I can see things, and many of our behaviors today have their root in our upbringing as children. But then you realize, how must my parents' upbringing have been? Well, hard to say, right? So it's about time to be a bit less judgmental. I mean, Canadian Indians have been reported, and I've read this in a book somewhere about the Wim Hof method, to, just place their children into the snow in winter, during cold temperatures, obviously because there was snow. And they just left them there for 10 minutes. Just to get them used to it. Now, I'm always escaping the cold because I was bred into a world that has artificial heating, which means you can get rid of the cold, right? You can have a constant 20 degrees Celsius environment in your home in winter. And that seems very cozy, but it's actually bad for your spirit. Because what's funneling the heat in your apartment is unnatural, is riding on the back of nature. First we had one room that was hot, and then suddenly it was the entire house that had to be heated. It wasn't enough anymore to have one communal room. No, everybody needed their own space. But at the same time, I cannot say that it was necessarily bad for me, because I learned so much about myself while being alone for such a long time. So everything in due time. Probably virtual reality is necessary to teach people, that this is the only real thing. Right? And me, slacklining and talking top volume, recording myself is already super unnatural. Plus these colors that I'm spouting, I mean, you find them in the sky, but down here it's more like green and brown, right? So who am I kidding? I'm still changing, one step at a time. I just went through hell again in my mind. I tried working, but I couldn't. I was trapped in the house. Now I managed to leave. Because I'm being connected spiritually to all kinds of people, sometimes I have to sit with them, which is hard to explain, my friend. So how I changed, well, I kept introducing small changes, and then I had to suffer the consequences, right? So also you learn a new trick on the slackline. You know, I started to fiddle a little because I'm learning the handstand. I'm learning new yoga positions. And it's hard to say why I have to do this all on my own. So I started doing it like this. Okay. And you just have to hold it. Okay. But sometimes I also say it's enough, right? Like, sometimes I have enough of people. You know, if you can sleep like this, then you've owned it. Whoa. So it's your entire body that's getting trained like this. Which trains your mind. Which gives you a new perspective on life. Because now you know that you can do this. But I also made sure that, because there was one woman especially that inspired me to keep doing this. And although I never see her, I feel like I feel her. So how I changed, I said, you know, I need a wife. And then I picked one. To me, that was enough in that sense. Because I said that whatever this wife is going to be for me is then going to be my challenge. And if this wife is going to be for me liberation of sex, then that's what it's going to be. But that in itself is also a struggle. Because I was raised to be, you know, clinging to sex. Because you could say of my father's unfulfilled whatever. Because for most people, sex is an escape. You know, it's not about like what tantra between a man and a woman is. It's like going deep together. You know, there's then probably no spanking. Probably no like doggy style. Like true tantra is like being with each other. There's a lot of theory if I talk about these things. But it's just what I think I know. Because I've had this other kind of sex and I realized it's more traumatizing. I needed something where I said, if it comes, then it has to stay. And then it's, you know, until the end. You know, I cannot have this getting together, running away. You know, you either come or you leave, but when you then leave, never come back again. Because I think this is a challenge. If you say you want marriage, then you should be able to hold it for the rest of your life. Because then you also are there for the woman. Because then it's about relying on each other. So in that sense, what Ragnar Lothbrok did in that series Vikings, I don't know. It was in a way a bit stupid, But the whole show was stupid, of course. It was focusing on the wrong things entirely. You know, Viking life would have been facing nature. The rest just came from greed, right? So it was also then their greed, you know, that's not the Viking spirit. That's just, you know, the fear of the aristocrats. You know, of people like me. Imagine, I come into nature, I spend time in darkness, while they sit in their castles drinking wine. I face nature, I'm amongst wild beasts, I'm half animal, half god of the forest or something, or just like a being, and they're trying to act like they're something else, right? They're trying to act like they're above nature, and suddenly nature comes in the form of what you once used to be, and it's gonna scare the hell out of you. So the Vikings were just protecting their land, and people came with, you know, weapons, because they wanted to take control over the land, right? That's how I see it. So how I changed is, you know, in that sense irrelevant, because it's about how you can change and what you want to turn into. I had a rough idea. I saw myself just as a wild man of the forest, standing there, right, like this. You know, winter or not, there was a woman by my side, and the woman had children. I always felt like there ought to be like some kind of a wolf. I don't think that's quite necessary, unless the wolf would want to be with me, and then that's different. I don't know, at least for now, I cannot see myself. I mean, there's lots of dogs, but challenge or no, I feel like one should simply walk their own path. So you cannot listen to this and ask yourself, why is he doing any of this? Because I'm also in a way stuck, but I'm going with the times. I changed into recording all of this because what I was going through, I felt was important to document it, to see how hard it is to actually go from somebody who's been raised into this fake world and then start diving more into the forest, which to me is the ultimate challenge, because, you know, it's not like I'm completely rid of fear. I'm just getting used to the idea also. Like, what if there would come a wolf now? What would I do? Just stand here? I don't know. Would I have to hide? Would I have to climb a tree? Or should I just stand here and just say, hey, you know, you're a being, I'm a being. Could be the last thing you'll ever say. So I was afraid a lot of a lot of things. You know, mosquitoes, diseases, ticks. And then I realized that diseases are just marketing, man. It's just marketing. You know, you market the sickness and then you provide the cure. A lot of the stuff I've been going through was just emotional cleansing. You know, like, you know, it's like when it's cold and you start shivering, you realize, wow, this is just energy trapped in my body. You know, it cannot flow because I have blockages everywhere. And that led me to realize at some stage that what mosquitoes are doing, you know, they always go to specific points, right? So this is like acupuncture. But to accept this, and then to also accept, you know, the healing itch. You know, it's like nature asks you for a trickle of blood. And for that it removes your blockages, but you have to actively choose this. And you know, there may be swelling. I've had mosquito bites. I have often tick bites, but only a sick body will react strongly to this. So the only thing you can do is then just start cleansing more. Maybe work with anorganic sulfur or just fast. Change your habits. What you have to work on most is your mind, because that's where they trap you. And then how to open the mind, I cannot advise you on this. At least possibly then not on a platform like that, because it's too easy to misuse it. All I can say is that I did my psychedelics, but I cannot tell anyone to do it, because I've seen many people who lost themselves in psychedelics, and that if you want to free yourself, free your mind, then you have to know your own boundaries, and you have to see what's good and what's maybe, it always has to be for healing and letting go, and then asking life for guidance. This is the intention you bring into such ceremonies. Also, ceremonies you do yourself. I mean, you can buy ceremonial cacao and you can get visions from that, unless you do it every day. You know, this should be like, wait for the full moon and then prepare yourself and then do it. Wait for whatever you could be waiting for, right? And then go and do it. And so how I changed was, I was making new experiences, sometimes small, sometimes big, but I also said, I'm gonna love this woman whether she wants to give me children or not. You know, the woman has to want to give you children, because you're the best thing she ever found. And then she lets herself fall into your arms, and that's what everybody wants, but nobody wants to work for it. No man wants to prove to the woman, they just want to get to the goodies right away. And the sad story is that lots of women that have been brought up without the stability of the father, you know, they just run after any man that resembles their father. And they have a hard time choosing something because they don't know what their own worth is. Because nobody ever gave it to them. You know, they were probably neglected as children. You know, so have I. I ran after women that were... I mean, I was in a way out of their league. It's tough to admit that to yourself, but there are differences in character to be seen by your choices. So you can also say it's a mere coincidence that I never had any children, or it simply was impossible for me because I never truly connected. Plus all these women took the pill and stuff, right? And they wear perfume and Dio, and so you can never see yourself clearly, right? Because everybody's so fake. You cannot, you know, everything stinks. My nose has been done surgery on. It took me a long time to get my, you know, sense of smell back. And that's basically how I changed. Just like small things, like you want to progress on the slack line. Well, you slackline until you get better. And then you want to make a new move. Or maybe try getting across the slack line like this. I mean, I made many extreme experiences in my life that showed me who I truly am. And I've learned to center myself by working more on my left side And so it's easier to hold your balance. Wow. And suddenly you have such strength. It's incredible. And even this, right? Holding such positions. I mean, it's what monkeys do on a daily basis. So, Paida Lajin, I practiced a bit of semen retention. I did Paida Lajin, which is slapping and pulling, which is hard to do in this city environment because everybody judges. Even here, you know, this can only be done in a safe environment. So I build up my body, my animal body, to support my spirit from flying away. And then I just made experiences, lots and lots and lots of experiences, lots and lots and lots of experiences. And you know, suddenly I'm here and I'm feeling clearer, because I'm cleansing my aura by spending time amongst true beings, which are trees. Plus, slacklining helps me to center myself, because I'm often like this, you know, I'm like everywhere. If I'm at home, there's nothing else to do, so I'm like in a cave, and my mind starts wandering, you know, to this person, to this person, to this being, to this, you know, remnant of the past, to this. And then I make art and and then I come here and I center myself again. So you have to find out what inspires you to keep living, to keep giving, because this world is all about attention, about giving, and about maintaining your own space, because otherwise people will just barge into it, right? A tree must maintain its space, and so must I. Also on the internet, I had to make sure that the content I produce is in accordance with the platform I'm posting on. So in certain ways, yeah, I have more freedom in my books and in my podcast, but also there you have to, like, you know, it has to be supporting, you know, freedom movement, not more war, because war is already everywhere. And for that, I just balanced myself. And in the beginning I was slacklining, you know, you think you're doing good. You cannot see yourself changing into this, walking over the slack line, turning left and right. You cannot see yourself doing any of this. So why do it then? Well, I have a hard time sticking to anything. Like I say, I choose a woman, but every day I feel like, you know, there's also women here, right? That I could spend time with. And I don't know where that always comes from, but I know such women cannot satisfy a man like me, because I need a woman that knows that she wants me. And I have been with a lot of women that probably resembled me, which were women that were kind of like rejected by their father, which is a bit like my story. My father is always, you know, running away. And so I had to accept this. I just realized it now, because my father always does it. You know, he wants you to run after him, because he too has been left by his father when he was 16. And so That's what he knows. So I started to realize this, that I can actually give stability to my father emotionally, and he supported me financially because I gave him something he was lacking, and so it was an exchange. And it's very hard to accept this. Other changes, so I was looking for a woman that came out of a stable household, you know, with, you know, parents, a bit like mine, but then in her own way. And every day I have to choose her again, because, right, there's other women that would just like some time with me. And then the pride, right? Oh, look at him. He's got a six-pack. I know women like this, lots of them. And then they would walk around, but they never worked for this, what I have become, because I said yes to one woman and no to all the others. Okay, I'm still clinging a bit to porn. I'm still clinging a bit to this quick relief, because I have to learn to simply leave the house more often. And then slackline, and then simply go to my limits. But before now, I could have also not really done this, I think, because I was having so many projects. Simply needed to go through this bit by bit, sort out all the stuff that was me, that was others, make new experiences, see where I was along the way, and then simply keep going. And, you know, this woman that keeps reaching out to me, that is, in terms of space, closer, it's just annoying me. It's disgusting. Sorry, but I have to be judgmental. I started to judge people according to their actions. So I stopped listening to their words and I looked who they actually are. You know, you're obese. You don't even know how to, you know, you're about holding on. Which is why you're full of like resentment, full of childhood stuff. So how can I listen to you? To me, then you are more like a negative example. You know, okay, you know, no time for you. Because you're phony. You know, you say you like yourself, but you cannot let go. Because you're, what I see, your projection, you know, you're fat, you're skinny. I mean, I eat a lot of food, but I process it all and I let it all go. But a lot of people, they're about holding on. And then that's their problem. But I'm about letting go because I'm here to move on, right? I live so that one day I can die. And that's also my message to the world. That's when you see, okay, which woman, you know, picks up the challenge. But there are women that I could actually never love. I tried, but it was out of pity. I want a woman that for me is an actual challenge. And then you can try to... Wow! You see, that's actually dangerous. So you have to know your limits. You have to know what you can do. And then you can start, right, pushing yourself through with the help that you're being given. If I wouldn't have continued to help my parents by cooking for them, by engaging with them, by talking to them, they would have never paid my apartment. Okay, this, you know, is it gonna break? Hard to say, hey? So better... So how I changed, exactly like this. I kept coming to nature And in that sense, I don't care what your excuse is, because I had my excuses. If nature for you is 3 hours by train away, but you're earning a constant living, yeah, then, you know, instead of spending your weekend, you can just say, okay, on Friday I'm going to book a train, you know, get to nature, and then have a cabin there, and then just go hiking. And then Sunday I'll go back, you know, as late as I can manage. And that's what I feel is necessary. So this in a way is a camp, but I too am, you know, I want to go back to the apartment. But it's starting to become less now. I want to be less in the apartment. Because now is summer. In summer! Yeah. And I can discover the forest. Now there's a movie I would like to watch, although I feel like it's gonna disturb me. It's called Mad God. I just want to see what the newest hype is. Keep myself also busy, try to be at least a bit, stay connected. But I mean, what's it gonna show? I can already see from the trailer, but maybe there's some things that are useful. So also one way I changed was simply by, I kept on watching and working with the movies that I liked as a child already. Why? Because I feel that, I felt that it's a good thing to look at what has impacted your spirit as a young fledgling. You know, what was the environment you were born into? So it's looking a lot at your childhood. What did you do after, you know, lots of stuff, like, you know, I looked a lot at the women I have been with. I looked a lot at situations I found myself in that kept coming back. So I was looking at everything that was holding me back to find closure, you know, to certain chapters just need to be closed in your life. So for Harry Potter, you know, I open at the close. The snitch will only reveal itself when he's at a certain point in his life where he made certain choices. And this is what I found true for myself as well. Like, certain portals only open, you know, when you really want to go through them, right? That's like, if you look at Howl's Moving Castle, you know, there's Heen, this dog from the wizard Suleiman. The book, by the way, is much better, as usual, but I liked the movie, or loved it for some time. And then there's this Heen, and Sophie is just going into the dark cave where she finds Howl. And then there's this dog, before he jumps in, he's like, you know, running in circles, and then he jumps. So sometimes you're running in circles, you know, for a long time, until you finally, right, take the dive. So I was running in circles a lot. I was creating all the content I want, but I was looking for a way to merge into nature again. And that I'm doing now with the help of this camera. Because sometimes you just need a purpose. So my purpose is to bring you nature in a way. Show you there's nothing to be afraid of. But at the same time, I don't know where you live. I don't know where you live. Is there like bears in the forests? Is there like, you know, wolf packs? Do you live in Africa? Where do you live? I mean, here, there is potentially nothing, but there still might be. And now I'm just finding a very beautiful position for all sorts of things, picnics, grilling chicken. I'm just starting to reconnect with this area because home is where your heart is, and my heart is here, which is why I'm turning this into my home, and suddenly I can see what I used to see in Africa. I realized that I was traveling through Tanzania, through South Africa, and I came back here and suddenly I see it. I see what they had, but I see it here. Because nobody could show me this perspective. I was never raised in nature, right? We were always one step away from it. You know, it was the shoes you were wearing, it was the path. You never left the path, right? You always stuck to the path. And I'm just leaving the path. And then you start doing things that others feel like are super crazy. And then you just see where it's gonna get you. Like this, for instance. And then I'm probably going to go back, pack my things, because this is today's session. And then I need to render these videos. I have one more that I'm gonna do today, because I feel like I just need to progress with YouTube. And there were people that tried to destroy the image I was creating by my actions. They never managed. And those were family members. Those were just random people. Those were people that acted like friends. I met a lot of people who were in a way testing me. But they would have, you know, tested me to the degree of getting rid of me. And so I started making different choices. Spent more time on my own. Stopped spending time with people that told me who I was or how I should do things, and I just started doing them myself. So I wanted to be less dependent. And then suddenly you've changed. And that's how I changed, right? I just kept doing things that other people would say is crazy. Kept going, you know, on night hikes. But already during my studies, I was different than other people. And one way also, you know, if I record all of this content now, it means that I will have more time to myself without the camera, because that too is then a challenge. If you start with the camera, then to do things without the camera is also really tough. And that's what I'm working towards now. And I'm done You know, I don't need to record like lots of different things here. Just gonna take you back to camp and then finish off. Because before I would have probably done lots of recordings, but I'm already quite far ahead. So I also like to keep these moments somewhere hidden in my content. You know, I will do more stuff about movement again. I know this place exists, but I don't want to push too far. I will simply keep recording videos, make content, but then also take my time with these creations. You know, so that I have some videos that are quite long, then others are more poetic, others are longer, shorter. It's supposed to be an inspiration. Like a meme. A meme, according to Terence McKenna, is the smallest idea, the smallest, you know, it's like the smallest concept of an idea. And this idea is we need change. This is one way of changing. Other people change in other ways. This is how I've changed. And I've recorded it. You know, it started with my podcast and it continued in all kinds of other areas. But I can safely say that I see no need to expand this. You know, if I create content, let's say I would do it on YouTube, do it on Instagram, I write books, occasionally maybe make music. I mean, what's there more to be done in this day and age? You know, it's to get people away from this nonsense into the experience. And then do it your way. And it will never be the masses, but it will be an increasing amount. Because what you can safely say is that nature has always been full of hardship. And during times like this, it has to be actively chosen. But even in the Middle Ages, there were these that, you know, the traveling folk who never liked sticking around the same place for too long. Only I don't want to drive anywhere. I don't want to really fly anywhere. I just want to be here in nature. I want to go for a hike. Whether I will never take a train anymore, I cannot say. But for myself, I think this is better. Because I am where I am. Because I am prone to forgetting. And so I'll just see where I land. You know, I've jumped already several times. But people like, you have to stay here. There's still stuff you need to be doing. Which I don't know nothing about, perhaps. And if I do, then that's the reason I smile. So, how I changed? That's probably the lead over to next week. What's insane? You know what's insane, my friend? How I changed? I disintegrated myself and then I put myself back together. So I threw away everything and then I, you know, paid attention to what stuck. Okay, now I think I'm just gonna pack and walk back. That's then also you have to stop clinging to the forest. I came here with the purpose of recording this, and now I'm just gonna go back. Because otherwise I'll feel restless, I feel useless. I may just slackline one more session. Just make it a slackline recording. Or I'll just slackline without recording it. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So true.